This week on the Hudson Valley Disc Golf Podcast, we talked to James Carman, the current PDGA coordinator for the state of New York, to find out why he's running for the position again.
I think it's just a good way to be able to keep giving, even though you can't necessarily, be physically present at all the things you want to be.
We hear from our resident hockey expert, Randy, on the Stanley Cup final.
I've been staying current with what's going on, but I haven't watched any of these last 6 games.
And how he managed to play 3 tournaments in 2 days.
I was going to ask Randy if that doubles his tournament count of the year, all in 1 weekend.
We also go over the last week in disc golf.
I did get to kill a bunch of vines.
And finish it up by recapping the Brewster Ridge Open driven by Innova.
It was kind of I shitted all over Brewster Ridge this week.
But first, Jamin and Alex want you to know there's a monthly at OKDGC this weekend.
There's a monthly this weekend. Get out to the monthly. Go play OKDGC. If my damn brother wasn't getting married, I'd be there.
Yeah, and if you can make it out to the workday on Saturday, so it's going to be Saturday workday and then Sunday actual monthly. So if you can make it out to the workday, we'd really appreciate it. It's just a matter of, weed whacking some stuff and clearing out some fairways. I think we've had a couple of storms. The stuff that hit us in Vermont didn't hit us as bad here, but, there's still stuff to clean up. So if you can get out there, that'd be really great, really appreciated. Get a practice round in. Tell me where you want the short tees, and I will maybe consider it. No, if you have opinions on the short tees, I'm always happy to hear them, especially if you've actually played the course and helped out with coursework. So,
what time on Saturday?
Saturday, I believe we're looking to get started at 10 o'clock. I think that's what I put on the event. 9:30.
Okay. And
the Facebook event has a Google map to where you need to go. So 9:30 Saturday, we'll get a bunch of stuff done. We'll play some practice rounds. It's only 9 holes. They're challenging 9 holes, but you can get through them pretty quick.
Welcome to the Hudson Valley Disc Golf Podcast. This week we got Jason, Randy, Alex, Jamin, Corey, and our guest tonight is James Carman. He's been the PGA coordinator for the state of New York for the last 2 years. How did you first discover disc golf?
The first I discovered disc golf was through a coworker of mine. I worked in the restaurant industry, and a friend of mine who I cooked with was like, "Hey man, you want to come out and check out disc golf?" I think at that time, like many of us, had no clue what it was. Didn't really know that it would be anything interesting to me. Went and checked it out once or twice, and then probably took a few months before I actually really got into it. And then probably a year or so before I really, got the bug and started doing events and tournaments and stuff.
What year was this?
So I first started playing probably around 2010, I want to say. Maybe a little bit before. 2013 would be when I first started running leagues, but I definitely was playing casually before I even joined the league, so about 2010.
Where do you live?
I live in the suburbs of Buffalo, New York. I'm actually originally from Syracuse, though. I moved here for school, and I've been here since 2004, so 20 years in Buffalo.
What's your local course?
The closest course to me is this little 12-holer called Lincoln Park. It's a fun course. The course that I probably play more often, though, is Ellicott Creek Park. It's just your standard par 55 park-style course. A lot of open lines, but fun.
You said it was a couple years before you started to get into running events and such. What made you decide to do that?
So there's a league here that has been running for 37 years now. It's called Niagara Region Disc Golf. It's a doubles league, and it's just random draw. So I found out about that through a friend of mine. We went and checked it out, and it was a lot of fun. So I went probably, maybe 10 times that year. And at the end, a good friend of mine now, his name's Rich Whistling, said, "Hey guys, it's my time to move up. I'm going to move up to the open division," which we at one point, the league was capping out courses. So we split into open and amateur. So Rich said, "Hey, I'm going to move up. I need somebody to help run the league." And I was like, well, sure, why not? Seems like it's something that could be fun. So I got involved running that league and kind of got the bug to start doing more. And I think you guys know, you start doing one thing and it just kind of escalates.
Absolutely. Do you remember your first actual tournament that you ran?
That I ran or that I was in?
Both. First that you were in and then that you ran, yeah.
The first tournament that I played in was probably the Ice Bowl. I don't remember what year it was. I remember there was probably about 2.5 feet of snow, and we played at a course that's pretty up and down. So you're just trudging through 2.5 feet of snow and throwing. Everyone's losing discs. It was so much fun, but also just so like abusive. It was one of those situations where you're enjoying getting your butt kicked.
You finished that tournament?
Yeah, it was 2 rounds in the snow. It was brutal.
I remember playing in a similar situation where it was like, as long as those guys are going to keep playing, I'm going to keep playing, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like if they're done, I'm done. But if they're going to keep going, I'm in.
I don't remember anyone even dropping from the event. I'm pretty sure everyone just kept on playing. I mean, it was crazy conditions, but there's the ice bowl. I think the ice bowl just brings something out in people where they're just like, screw it. I know I'm gonna just get snowed on, but it's for fun. I mean, it's a huge charity fundraiser. When the McCullochs used to run it here, I think Buffalo was in like the top 10 ice bowls for like contributors every year. They did an excellent job with raising money with that.
Buffalo is obviously known for like just a different level of snow than other places. In the Buffalo area, what does too much snow look like to play disc golf?
That's actually a pretty funny question to ask me because I live in the North Towns, and the Buffalo that most people see is the South Towns. That's where they get like 7 feet of snow in a night.
Okay.
Our last big storm where I think the South Towns got like, I think it was like 9 feet in like a 48-hour period. I could still see grass. Just the record. So like the way the wind comes off the lake, it just kind of splits it, and most of it ends up to the South Towns, and North Towns don't really get it. Actually, growing up in Syracuse, I remember getting a lot more snow when I was a kid than we get here. Here it's the wind chill, in my opinion. It just gets really, really freezing with the way the wind comes off the lake.
From the north to the south, how far is that?
Okay, so I live in Amherst, which is roughly 15 to 20 minutes from the city. And then the South Towns, where they get the worst snow, is probably about 10 to 15 minutes. And then it could extend a little bit further down, but 10 to 15 minutes. So it would probably take me close to half an hour to get where the weather gets real bad.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of remarkable, honestly.
So that was the first one you played in. What about your first tournament that you ran?
The first tournament that I ran, I have to think it was Winter Wizards. I ran that for a few years. And the first year I ran it at Lincoln Park, the one that's really close to me. I didn't actually live where I live now. Again, that was another day where it wasn't as much snow, but we got, a good amount of snow during the event where it was coming down pretty hard. There was a while where I ran a lot of the fundraiser-esque events, the part 2s, the trilogy challenges, stuff like that.
What made you want to run an event as opposed to just playing them?
That's a really, I don't even know that I know the answer for it. Like I said, I kind of got started with League just because he asked who wanted to help. No one else said anything, and I just said, yeah, sure, why not? And then you go to an event, you go to your first event, and you just kind of experience what everyone gets to experience, where everyone's having this great time, and the environment is just usually so welcoming, and everyone's happy, and you just kind of think to yourself, I could also make people happy. Like I can do something that makes people want to come out and play, and it really, really like one of those few things where it's a high, the euphoria of other people's joy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I get that.
I've always kind of been good at organizing, putting things together, leading. So I just kind of considered it, like, because it's a skill set that I have, I just kind of consider it as something that I can always be contributing.
Do you get to play in most of your tournaments or no?
Yeah. Most of the events that I run, I get to play in. Some of them I might not. For example, I think this year I'm one of the assistant TDs for the Buffalo Flying Disc Open. I think this year I'm not going to play in it. I haven't played any sanctions events this year. I'm just kind of taking a little bit of break from playing in sanctioned events just because my skill level has dropped the last few years because I don't get out to play as much as I used to. So I just kind of said, I'm good with doing unsanctioned stuff, and I'll still help run the sanctioned stuff. But I mean, I have the opportunity to play if I wanted to.
How many courses are in your area?
Ooh, a lot. 18 holers, close to 15. I guess it depends on how close my area is. Within 45 minutes, it's probably like 15 or so 18-hole courses. We have a pretty dense course population here, and it's very diverse.
Are a lot of them newer, or have they been there for a while?
A good amount of our courses have been here for quite a while at this point. We have a couple newer ones, one of which that I was a part of helping design, and we have another one that'll be opening up that's about an hour from me that's down in Ellicottville that I was the primary designer on that we think will be pretty cool. That's right on a ski hill. I would say most of our courses have probably been in the ground for about a decade, though, and then a few that have been here more recently.
I only ask because I'm a little south of these guys. These guys are all the Capital Region guys, and it seems like in the last 5 or 6 years, there's been a huge boom in the amount of courses. So I didn't know if, I was just curious.
Yeah, we've definitely added a few here, but we kind of live in a fairly rich historical area for disc golf. Courses were here for a pretty long time. There's actually a story, and I don't know the full details because I wasn't around, but there's kind of a story of when our first course got put in. The baskets were not Steady Ed's design. So he actually sent a cease and desist to the park and the guys that put in the baskets. So there was a little bit of a covert move thing where they moved the baskets from one of the parks to another one so that no one knew. It was done in the dead of the night. And I think if I've heard the story correctly, one of those baskets is in the Hall of Fame down in Georgia.
Oh, wow.
So that was way back in the day, 30 plus years ago. Like I said, the league that I help run, that I'm the president of the group of, that's been going for 37 years. So we've kind of been very fortunate in Buffalo to have a long-standing disc golf community.
Absolutely. Do you get out this side of New York at all? Have you played any of the courses around here?
I have played 2 of your guys' courses. I've played Central Park. That's before I know you guys had to make a few hole changes recently. So that's before that. And then I played Heiser Creek. So I don't make it out to Albany often, but I do have friends out there. So I do try to make it out there occasionally. I actually just told Jeff White, I don't know how to say his last name, Wachowski?
I don't think he does, so that's
okay.
That's
fair enough. I just told him today that he messaged me, and I said I really got to get out and meet a lot of you guys because for the last 2 years I've been messaging with a lot of people who I just have never actually met. So I think I'm gonna plan a trip out there maybe sometime this fall if I can.
Nice. Well, you've played Heiser Creek. Alex, he's up that way, and he hasn't even played Heiser Creek. So
that's true.
I liked it. It's a very rugged course, it's just in the middle of the woods and a lot of rocks, and it was fun. It was definitely a cool course. I want to get out and play Jay Park. I hear great things about that place.
So you've been the New York State coordinator for a couple years now. What made you decide to run for that position?
So I have 2 young children, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And when my son was born, I wasn't really able to, get out as much as I used to and help run as much events as I used to, or, get out on courses and do volunteer work as much as I used to. A good amount of the coordinator position, in my opinion, is paperwork. Essentially, you're checking people's events to make sure it doesn't conflict with others. You're messaging with TDs. A good amount of that can be done while you're at home with a 2-year-old. So I just kind of figured it was a way I could continue giving to a community while not actually being able to go out and boots on the ground scenario.
Is it a 2-year term?
It's a 2-year term. Yep.
So I guess pretty much the same reason why you would want to run again.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like I'm fairly good at organizing things. I like to give back. I like the sense of community. I've gotten to know people that I probably wouldn't otherwise that are pretty great people, I think. So I think it's just a good way to be able to keep giving, even though you can't necessarily, be physically present at all the things you want to be.
Sounds pretty logical to me. We were talking about this right before you got on, but why is there only one New York State coordinator? Having done it for the last couple of years, do you think there are more needed?
That's a great question. I suppose it kind of depends on what you might think a coordinator is most useful for, or what the PDGA might think a coordinator is most useful for. There's definitely some things that would be prohibitive in our state. It takes 8 hours to go from Buffalo to the city. So the likelihood of me making it out to an event that's, down in the wedge area or in disc cap, it might be lower. So if somebody's looking for a state coordinator that's going to be present at all the big events, then I'm probably not the best fit right now. That's definitely not something that I'm capable of doing. That said, I personally don't know that that's a necessity. Like I said, I believe the majority of the role is facilitating and making sure that people's events are approved, being able to answer questions when people have them. And I think a lot of that can be done off-site. There are definitely scenarios I could see an advantage to having somebody on the other side. I think the reason why there's 2 coordinators for some of the states where they are is mostly based upon the amount of events that are being run within those states. Although we have a fairly large state, we don't have like a massive quantity of events that are being run each year. There's definitely a good amount, but I mean, it's not like it's, 1,000 events or anything. So I don't know if that fully answers the question, but that's kind of my perspective on it.
No, I think that's a good answer. I don't run events here, but I think the biggest issue would be other states because we're very close to the borders to several other states.
Mm-hmm.
1, do you talk to other state coordinators? And 2, do you take that into account, other state events and such?
Yep. So the PDGA actually made it a bit easier this year. And actually, the last 2 years, they have changed the tour standards so that the distance requirements are significantly lower than what they used to be. Now, C tier to C tier, there's no distance requirement. Feasibly, you could have 2 events run like within a mile of each other if they're C tiers. And then outside of that, it's B tier to C tier is 25 miles. And then B tier to B tier is 50 miles. Like, that's not that far. You know what I mean? It's pretty easy to hit the mileage restrictions, especially when you look at where most of the courses are. There's definitely some scenarios where it comes in. One of the scenarios that we had recently was that, like, with an A tier that was in Canada, just over the border from us here. And it was the A tier was full. So I just reached out to Ontario's coordinator and just said, hey, we got a C tier down here in Buffalo. Do you have any issue? And he said, oh, no, we're full. We got a 50-person wait list. You go ahead, run your event. Doesn't matter. So that's just a matter of, coordinating with them. But generally, I mean, most instances, the conflicts are minimal.
What's the biggest type of conflict you've had in your 2 years?
Like in terms of events overlapping each other like that?
Yeah.
I don't really know that there's really been any major ones that's been like an issue or anything. I haven't really had to, ask anybody to move their event or anything. Usually it's just kind of letting people know, like even if it meets the requirements and I think, well, this course is pretty close to this one, I'll usually just say, hey, you're approved, but just so you know, there's another event that's like this far away. And oftentimes they'll say, yeah, no, that's okay. It's a different type of event or they're a different group. I don't think either event will overlap each other. I can't think of any instances over the last 2 years where there's been like a major event conflict scheduling wise. I mean, there's definitely events where it's like 2 events in Buffalo, but one's in the North Towns and South Towns. They meet the requirements. No big deal.
And I would also think at a local level, people also check before I send this to the coordinator, are there any other events going on as well?
Yeah, for sure. Very often the communities know each other, like the Discap folk know the Wedge folk or the Glens Falls or the Adirondack folk. And same thing here, like Rochester's about an hour away from us, but like our leaders know the Rochester leaders, so there's often collaboration and coordination between those people before it even gets to the state coordinator level.
So the vote for this begins July 1st. How does that work? You just get an email?
Yep, everyone will get an email. It basically breaks it down, telling you what positions are available, because I don't think it's only state coordinators right now. Usually there's a few positions available. It will give them just a breakdown of our bios, which are currently also up on the PDGA website. If somebody wanted to see them, you could just go to the PDGA and search state coordinators. And then it should just kind of give a list of current active coordinators. And then there should be another page with, those who are running for the position. And then just brief bios about, their experience, their life, etc.
Heck yeah.
So, James, as kind of like the head TD for the state, I'm sure you run into a lot of new tournament directors. Are there any like recurring mistakes that you see tournament directors do in their rookie years?
It's an interesting question. A lot of that doesn't really even come back to me. Because if there is a criticism of an event, if somebody sends it to the PDGA, that doesn't usually go to me. That usually goes to they have like a whole event staff, so it'll go to them. There's definitely things that where people just don't know and learn. I'm trying to think what a good one would be, where it's just like it seems like common sense after you've been doing it for a while, but I don't know. Honestly, just like having posted times at Tournament Central so people are aware. And this is something that I feel like every event I've ever been involved in, there's always somebody who comes back from lunch late and says, well, on the disc golf scene page, it says 1:00. And at every event that I've been involved in, we always say lunch is an hour after the last card is turned in. It is not what's posted. It's going to change. And, you announce it no matter what you do. You announce it. You have it posted on site. And no matter what, somebody always shows up late. So, but I don't think that's that's not a mistake of a TD. That's just that's the one thing that I feel like is inevitably always happens. And that person who shows up late is always angry at you because you didn't tell them personally.
Yeah. One of the rules of thumb that I try to use with a lot of that kind of stuff, and really anything in life that involves timing, is I always try to not move things earlier.
Mm-hmm.
That's always just one of the check boxes that I'm like, all right, so I said in one spot that lunch was going to be here. So I feel that it's okay to do it later than I said, but I do often try not to do anything earlier than I said, because that is a much harder to fix thing.
Yeah, that's fair. And then you get the guy though that's like, we've been waiting for 2 hours.
Oh yeah. And I think that's something that every TD learns almost immediately, is that everybody will never be happy.
Precisely. You could run the perfect event and there is something to complain about.
Yeah, and there's always something to learn on the TDing side, on the playing the event side, and everywhere in between.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I really gave you a good answer to your question, but I would say every event is a good learning opportunity. So, just after you've run an event, take a step back and see what you think you could have improved upon. Is there anything that you could take away that you could change? And field people for feedback. I try to ask people any feedback they have, let me know, because sometimes great ideas come from somebody who might not be the active person. They might have just came to your event and said, hey man, what about this? Lead TD isn't always going to be the person who has the best idea. So I also try to collect data whenever possible and just use that to make informed decisions. If you can, take any kind of information and use it, because numbers, I think, are always helpful, especially in something like this where it's, you very easily can analytically break down, scoring or timeliness, all those things. You can look at it and figure out and interpret.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any specific examples of when keeping data of just kind of random things has turned into some kind of revelation in how you're running something? I always try to keep data for stuff, but I often find myself spending more time organizing it than crunching it.
That's fair. So one of the events that I've run here the last 3 years now, we just had it yesterday. It's called the Larkin Square Urban Disc Golf Experience. A good friend of mine owns basically a property downtown, and part of that property is a little green space. And so we were talking one day and I said, hey, let's do a disc golf event on your property. So we do it. They're little tiny holes. They're 80, 100 feet. Everyone gets a putter and you go out and play. So the first year we did it, we kind of just threw it together in a couple weeks. I think we had 100 something people. We did it on a random Tuesday night and everyone came. There was definitely some instances that could be improved upon. One of our holes just had a major backup. So just being able to observe all of the holes and take a stock of how long groups were taking. So I started just every year taking notes of approximately how long each person's round takes, because we have 9 holes set up and I send people through twice. And it's slotted out really well where, a group will go out and immediately after them, a group will come back in from the first 9 and go back out. So I've got it kind of broken down where I know about exactly how long it takes each group to play through. So you can, maximize the amount of people that you can have. I think this year we definitely had over 150. I think I haven't done all of my full financials or numbers yet, but I think we had 160, 165 total, all running through just this small urban green space, which is pretty wild to think about.
That's awesome. That's a ton of people.
Right. And then the day before, Sam Castiglione, he's one of the other leaders here in Buffalo. He's sponsored by Prodigy. He ran a Prodigy 3-disc NHL event. We have the Buffalo Sabres here, so they reached out and said, hey, we want you to do an NHL event. So, yeah, we got the 3-disc NHL Buffalo Sabres discs. He ran that at the course that's right around the corner from me, Lincoln Park, set up and some added holes there. And he had 100, I think it was 110 when all was said and done. So, Saturday, Sunday, 2 events, over 100 people. it's definitely nothing to scoff at.
No, that's so cool. That's a lot of disc golf plus a lot of time. That's really awesome to see that big of a community doing that.
Yeah. Like I said, we're really kind of lucky out here. We got a lot of courses. We have a really strong community. Most of our events fill, and if they don't fill, they're getting pretty packed. We started running a point series a few years ago, and that's averaging 130 plus people per event as well. We run at tee time, so when you run a tee time event, you can really put a lot more people on the course. So yeah, we're very, very fortunate over here to be able to have such a good community.
Who are you rooting for tonight?
For the what's the NHL finals?
Yeah.
I don't have any skin in either game. I guess if I was gonna choose, I would choose the Oilers just because it's a really, really cool comeback story. Yeah, but I don't really care either way, to be honest with you.
No, that's cool. Let's say you get elected again for 2 more years. How long do you expect to do this? I know you said it's because you have a smaller child. Is there a time frame you're looking at?
I don't have a time frame. Maybe 10, maybe 4. I suppose if I get reelected and it gets to close to the end of year 4, I'll see how I'm feeling. If I'm still waking up every day and when wanting to do it, I absolutely think I would continue. I mean, maybe there's a point where I want to try to do more, where I want to try to, actually step up and take a higher role. I'm not 100% sure. I definitely have further ambitions, but I don't know that I have definitively in my mind how long I would do this for.
No, absolutely. What would be a next step up? Is there one?
I have a few local ambitions, and then I suppose I don't really know. I don't think that I would run for PDGA board or anything, at least not anytime soon. I think that you really kind of had to have been around doing a lot to really make an impact to that level. But there's all sorts of different positions within the PDGA where they have, multiple committees or groups where they help with different things. There's a person who's directly above the state coordinators who, his name's Steve Boylan. He was a state coordinator for a while himself, and then he took the elevated position where he kind of acts as a go-between for us if we need any help with anything. I guess I haven't really definitively said I want to definitely do this thing, but I could definitely see the possibility of wanting to do more at some point in time.
No, that's good. Like I said, I don't run events, but I talk to a lot of people who do. And the fact that I've not heard a complaint in 2 years bodes well for me, at least as far as, where I'm thinking. I would imagine this type of position is almost like an umpire in baseball or a referee in basketball. If they're doing their job, you don't know them. You know what I mean? You never hear anything bad.
Right.
You would only hear the bad, I would imagine. It's not like, oh, this guy scheduled this tournament so awesomely. You know what I mean? You're not going to hear that guy.
That's true. Yeah, I would like to think I've done a pretty decent job. Most of the feedback I've received from those that I've worked with has been positive. And, I know I'm not perfect, so I'm always open book and open ears. So if anybody has feedback for me, I am always willing to hear it because I think that there's always room to improve. Anyone who's willing to just kind of settle and say I'm doing enough isn't doing enough. They're not ambitious. They're not trying to improve,
Have you ever considered using your position as an opportunity for other statewide programs, like a point series statewide or anything like that?
That's a great idea. Definitely something I would be open to. I think there's challenges in that just because, how do I word this? Everyone kind of does their own thing in their own way. So you'd really have to find a rule set that can be agreeable to all parties. You'd probably have to find somebody willing to do a lot of the legwork on the back end. And maybe that would be me as the state coordinator. I'm not sure. There's definitely potential there for sure. There's a guy, and I don't know much about him. He's out of the Rochester area. His name's Michael Hanford. He runs a company called Backbone Disc Golf. And he's kind of talking about doing something along those lines. He reached out to me and said, I'm looking to start doing some events throughout the state. I think he's got one scheduled in CNY. He's done a couple events here in the Rochester area. So, I mean, maybe something like that is going to lead towards it. There's potential there. It will be challenging because of the size of our state, though, because some people are not going to be able or be willing to travel that far for what is probably just C tiers. So it'd have to be a worthwhile endeavor. You know what I mean?
Right. Are you familiar with NIFA at all?
I am familiar. I don't know much about them, but I am familiar in the very least because I do see them get posted in your guys' group quite a bit. Are they the ones that run the team challenge in the winter?
Kind of different, I think.
Yeah, Team Challenge it's a standalone thing, but
Okay.
it does tend to be a lot of the same people.
Right. I'm like familiar-ish with NIFA, but I don't really know much, I suppose would be. Do they run like a point series kind of thing?
Yeah, they have a pretty big point series, and it's New England Flying Disc, but our region in New York has a huge part in that.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it'll expand more west or south. I think our NIFA rep's trying to make that happen somewhat. But I was just curious if there's any opportunities to have like a statewide point series too. Because what they do there is I think now it's like $1, $2 a person gets deducted, and then at the end they have a points calculation based on how you finish at the events.
Mm-hmm.
It's optional what events want to opt into it, but every player gets deducted just like the PDJ fee. And they do two things. They do payouts for the season. Then they also have a New England Disc Golf Championship where they add cash to the purse. And, they also they're a not-for-profit, so they do other grants and stuff like that. But I was thinking maybe that's like an opportunity to tie that into either like the state championship or some other kind of like payout for the state, or maybe to give back to clubs.
Yeah, I mean, definitely open to the idea. If you want to put me in touch with the rep and we can see what they have put together and how we can implement something like that, it's definitely not an idea I'm opposed to. Like I said, we run a point series over here and it's a very successful thing. So if we could find a way to do something across the state, I'm definitely not opposed to any idea like that.
Even if it's like you guys do your system, we'll do ours, and at the end we'll each pick a handful of people that are willing to travel and then pick a location. You know what I mean? Because there are, I think you're right. I think the majority are not willing to travel, or even if it's half or whatever. But I think there's a
percentage that would.
Yeah, there's a definite percentage that would travel, and if each one did their own thing, and then at the end of it, like Discap sends their reps and Wedge sends their reps, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see something like that work, especially because then you're playing locally, probably in like your regular C tiers, which you're going to do anyway. And then you're incentivized a little further on those events. And then there's a reason to travel. Because, I mean, when they used to their match play plan where like you eventually played in your state and then in your region, and then, if you did well enough, you went into Emporia and you played for, I think 18 baskets, I think was what you played for. Like that was a massive success because of the structure it had set up to it. So there's definitely something there if you can figure out, the base for it, what would work from the bottom up.
Yeah. And the big fights could be, where do you play?
And I mean, so actually Jamin was kind of a big part of this. A few years ago, before I took over as state coordinator, I reached out to Bill, who was the state coordinator before me, and I said, it seems to me like there's not really any ground rules or anything for the states. The only thing that's really been established is that it will rotate locations every year, and there's four different locations. So I said, like if we want this to be a big event, maybe we should kind of put together some rules. So Jamin and some of the other guys. I was originally going to be part of the team, but my wife ended up in the hospital. She was giving birth to our daughter, so I wasn't actually in the meeting, but they put together like a whole rules document that kind of gives guidelines for those who want to run the state event so that it can kind of be of the same caliber each year.
Yeah, it sounds like it's at least improving in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, just try to give people the same information, the same guidelines so that you can, we're calling it the state championship. What really makes it the state championship other than like trying to have the most premier event, a prestigious event that people want to go to, play for a title, and you need to kind of set the stage for that and have, have the experience that equals the title.
I mean, my first thought would be that would be what you qualify for.
I think that the events could almost be not hand in hand, but they could be similarly run and or similarly timed, where you could kind of coordinate it with back-to-back weekends or something like that. Maybe, I don't know. There's definitely something where they could be around the same time of year so that, it could maybe reduce the need to travel. Because states would be like on the weekend, maybe the point series could be on like the Thursday or Friday beforehand. But maybe people don't want to do that because then they're tied for states. I don't know.
Yeah, it's some stuff to think about, definitely.
Yeah, no, I dig the concept. It's definitely something to take a look at.
Yeah, I was thinking in like your position, everybody basically has to, get your permission to have a PGA event. And I like the form and stuff you did. So if you were to do something like that, it would just be a simple like, this is going to be a New York points event.
Yeah.
And then if so, they deduct $1 per player, and you'd have somebody collect that fund, and then you could use that for either courses or something else. And just a thought. I haven't really thought it through, but there's very few positions like where somebody has contact with every tournament director in the state. So it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, no, the reach is definitely one of the benefits of the position, and I like the concept. I like the idea. It's the execution that needs to be chewed on a bit, but it definitely could turn into something really cool and really fun. And that's one of the things that is like we mentioned the team challenge. I think that's one of the things that's really cool about the team challenge is you end up like eventually playing against some folks that you probably wouldn't, because out in New England, you got so many states concentrated there that you're kind of traveling and getting to play with some different people than like just your local club.
Do you guys have anything similar out there?
We had a winter team challenge for a few years. I was one of the people who helped run it. I kind of took a step back from that. It didn't happen this past year. I don't know if it'll happen this year or not. Maybe I need to talk to some folks. I wanted to see it where like, because I know you guys started your own out there as well, but I think you also have a team that participates in the New England, right? So I wanted to see it where like New York could have team challenges in its major regions, and then eventually you play into like a final where it's like team challenge final, where like the top Western New York team, the top Rochester team, the top Syracuse team, the top Albany team, kind of all get together and play for like the state title.
That'd be fun.
That could be something really neat as well. And it kind of plays similarly into the point series idea.
Yeah, just a different way to go about it.
Right. But I do like the idea of, we mentioned this earlier, it's a big state. I like the idea of trying to find ways to allow players to interact a little more, to be able to encourage people to travel from, their corner of the state to another and be able to maybe check out a course you might not have otherwise. I know Jamin travels a lot, but not every player is going to, be willing to drive the 4 hours to go play in an A tier in Vermont,
Absolutely. I've got a very important question for you. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so you're visiting Niagara Falls.
Okay.
Maybe there's somebody going down it in a barrel or something. You get distracted and your bag falls into the falls.
Okay.
You run down to the bottom and you see it come up, and there's only 3 discs and your putter that wash ashore.
Okay.
And you're going to play one of your local courses. Jamin, what course?
We're going to go play the shorts at Bond.
Okay.
Because you only have 4 discs. It would be mean to.
Yeah.
So what 3 discs and what is your putter?
I putt with a PA3 presently. My 3 discs for the shorts at Bond. I'm probably going to go with a Hex for my mid-range.
Great choice.
I've got a really sweet Buffalo Bills dyed Josh Allen Hex that I had done. So that is like my go-to mid right now. I think I need a throwing putter. I'm going to go with a beat-up PA3 300 plastic, specifically the Prodigy Part 2 ones. For some reason, I feel like they're more manipulatable. And then I'll just need something kind of neutral for a driver. I think maybe a turn. Yeah, I guess a turn for my driver. I think I can probably, do flip-up hyzers. And, I think I can use a turn enough different ways where I can get through most of the holes. Honestly, if I'm limiting myself, I might only throw mids, which is crazy to say on Bond. It's a long course. But I think if I was limited, I could probably just get away with just throwing mids and putters and be okay. That's actually how I travel usually. If I'm traveling outside of New York and I can only bring a bag, I usually put like one driver in, and then it's mostly mids and putters. Because I feel like I can do most of the things I need to do with mids and putters. I'm probably not birdieing most holes, but I'm getting through the courses pretty clean in most instances.
All right. And what is your go-to course beverage?
I'm usually just a water drinker, honestly. I might have some beers after the round. I don't normally drink too often when I'm playing. So yeah, usually just ice water, especially like on these hot 90-degree days.
Absolutely. So then, of course, I'm going to ask then, what is your go-to off-the-course beverage?
I like IPAs. for the most part. When the weather's right and the mood strikes me, I like a good sour, fruited sour. We got a really good brewery around here that does great fruited sours. It's called Froth. And then maybe in the winter, something a little bit darker. But I usually can only have 1 or 2 dark beers before it's too much for me. They sit heavy.
Good answers. Good answers.
Is there anything you want to get out to voters?
I just want to encourage people to vote, honestly, whether it's for me or it's for Scott, who's running against me. People's participation in things is very important in my mind. So the more people who vote, the better. Obviously, I would encourage people to vote for me, but voting is important. Participation is important. The more people who actively participate, the better things become, in my opinion. And that's from everything. You run a work day and you only get 2 people, you're only going to get so much work done. You run a work day and you get 10 people, well, you're going to get a couple projects done.
I know that pain.
Yeah. I think anybody who runs a work day does, because there have been work days where you just show up and it's just you and you're just like, man, what do I do? But you gotta stay and you gotta get the work. You gotta do it yourself.
Do you know the guy running? Have you met him?
I do. I know Scott. Yep. He's local to me. He represents, there's a disc golf store here. They've got their own team. So he represents them, Team Spartan.
All right.
I've only run 2 events, and James responded to emails very quickly. I have to give you credit for that, but that's all of my experience, really.
Good. Thank you.
Like I said, like an umpire, if you're not hearing complaints, then you're doing a good job. So
Yeah, exactly.
That is true. It is the complainers that are always the loudest.
My biggest question was, why would you want to do it? But you've got a very logical reason. It affords you more time at home.
Yeah.
And you're able to help disc golf. So
yeah. And it really has been beneficial to me as well, because like I said, I've gotten to talk to a lot of people that I probably wouldn't have gotten to talk to because of this position. And, maybe we're not the best of friends right now, but, maybe some years down the line, as I continue getting to know these people, I might have developed some really good relationships across the state. And, maybe some of that turns into something. Maybe we do pursue the idea of a point series across the state, and maybe we've impacted, everything at a state level. So yeah, there's a lot of benefit that I can give. And I think there's a lot of benefit that I'm also able to get, and hopefully our communities are able to get, because I think that's the big thing, is the communities and being able to support them, give them the best experiences in disc golf we can.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jason, Randy, Alex, Jamin, and Corey. And thanks a lot for coming on, James.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me.
Awesome. And sweet up, Hudson Valley.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, guys. We had some time before James could join us, so we snuck in a hockey minute, went over the last week in disc golf, and recapped the Brewster Ridge Open. I got to talk to Randy.
Oh.
So tonight is Game 7 of the NHL Final. I know you follow the Bruins. Are you a real hockey fan, or are you like a casual fan?
I definitely lean more toward casual, I'll be honest. I haven't watched, I've been staying current with what's going on, but I haven't watched any of these last 6 games.
So if we weren't recording and you weren't at Dubs, would you be watching?
Ooh, maybe, actually. Yeah, I probably would be.
Okay.
Because I want the Swamp Kitties to lose.
Swamp Kitties.
Well, that was my next question. So Edmonton's come back from a 3-0 deficit to tie it. So you're rooting for Edmonton to win?
Yeah, for no particular reason other than the Panthers, beat the Bruins, and then the Rangers. So the 2 teams I would want to have done well got beat by them. So I'll root against them now.
It's less the Florida shouldn't have hockey thing, or it's not about Canada finally winning something.
I do like the Canada finally winning aspect as well. I don't know, there's a lot of good reasons for the Oilers to win. I don't know. It's weird. It's just a gut feeling, I guess. Immediately I was now I don't like the Panthers. Basically once they beat the Rangers. So
you're rooting for Edmonton. Who do you think is going to actually win it, though?
I think Edmonton has the momentum at this point. We'll see, though. Hockey's so weird like that, though. It's basically once you get up by 2 points, you can kind of, maintain. We'll see.
And they got that Connor McDavid guy, right? Edmonton?
Yeah, I think if they win, there's going to be McDonald's named after him. So that's a good enough story on its own.
Is he the greatest ever?
I don't know if he's the greatest ever, but his moves during these last 3 games have been phenomenal. Just weaving through everybody. Kind of, I don't even know.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
This last game, it's in Florida, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
I just got to add in, if we're talking about greatest ever with hockey, if we don't mention Wayne Gretzky, the hockey fans are going to be mad at us.
That's fair.
That's kind of my thing about it. Ask me again in 10 years if the guy's But then again, I don't want to be old man biased. So
The stats that Wayne Gretzky has put up are just absolutely insane.
Yeah, there's like almost no argument. Who's like the next closest? Ovechkin? Is that right?
I mean, Ovechkin is, if I remember correctly, he's like kind of close to the goals record,
Yeah.
but nowhere near the assists record or something like that.
Yeah, no. Gretzky was just on another level.
Yeah. Back when they did fantasy hockey, when he was playing, they would split him up into two players. They'd have Gretzky goals and Gretzky assists, and they would still both go first and second overall.
well, my argument would be back then it was all pen and paper anyway. You know?
It's true.
Not that that's an argument. That's just a statement of fact, probably.
Sure.
Also, Randy, we didn't mention this last week. You played the Jammer, the Sunnyside Takeover that night, and the Glitch World Championship, all in the the Glitch World Championship qualifier. Need to qualify that statement. But how were you feeling like Sunday afternoon? Was the Glitch 2 rounds?
The glitch was only 1 round,
Okay.
and Jenkinsville is not super long. So like there was only, I want to say 2 holes where like you were actually stretching the glitch past its like, you know, maximum distance, which is like pretty much the same for whoever's throwing it. Like it just basically stops flying like a little past 200 and something, like maybe 50 feet. I don't know. But no, I was actually feeling pretty good. It's weird. I forgot my elbow sleeve for the glitch event, which I thought was going to be bad, but I only threw a few little baby forehands, so it really didn't affect me at all. But going into it, I was a little worried.
So you've been faking it?
No, okay. So the elbow sleeve at this point is mostly to like protect my elbow because I've rehabbed it for so long at this point. But if I go a few weekends without wearing it, it'll go right back to like a flare up kind of unusable elbow. So it's tough.
But I don't even know if Corey's done 3 tournaments in 2 days.
I was gonna ask Randy if that like doubles his tournament count of the year, all in like one weekend.
So the doubles thing was relatively short. It was 18 holes, but then we went into an 8-hole playoff. So it was actually a lot of golf. But luckily, the playoff holes were the shorter holes. We took the par 4s out of the playoff like loop so that it was kind of fair for like the mixed partners to, you know, be shooting their tee shots like equal distances, basically. Yeah. I don't know if I don't know if I talked about that last week.
No, we didn't. I realized after the fact. That's why I was asking now. But I do want you to go over that. But that wasn't like glow golf. That was under lights. Is that different?
Yeah, it's under the lights, which is, it's really fun because you don't really have to worry, except if you put one just off into the weeds, which you could on a few holes, and it wasn't a glow disc, like you had to have a flashlight or something like that, which I think happened last year to us, but this year it was pretty neat and tidy. So we didn't have really didn't spend any time looking for discs, which was pretty great. There's kind of just 2 holes that are on the edge that you could potentially lose one on. But yeah, playing under the lights is really cool, except for I found once it got dark, like putting was weird. It was like really hard to judge your like distance between that like 20 to 30 foot mark with like bad lighting. We caged a bunch of putts that like I thought were going to go in right out of my hand. So kind of weird, but still super fun.
So who was your partner and who did you play in this playoff?
I was playing with Kat and we were playing against Tyler and Carly. I think we got up a few pretty early and we were cruising, and then all of a sudden with like 2 holes to go, we realized we were like only up 1 earlier in the round because it was a really casual event. Me and Kat like just absolutely duffed like a 12-footer. Like we both caged them and thought it was like hilarious. And then we get to the final hole and we were up 1, and then we had to make like a 20-footer in the dark and we both missed and they hit theirs. So it was tied. And then we had to go into this playoff. So like I was saying, we played off on this like loop of 4 holes that were all just about 200 feet. So like both partners could contribute pretty well. And it was just turned into a birdie fest. We shot, I think, 9 down during the actual round. And then when we played 8 holes, so it was, you know, sudden death. So we all birdied all but 1 hole. So 7 down through 8 holes. And then got to a point where people were trying to leave, but there was still like CTP throw off and stuff to do. So we were like, what do we do? So we made up our own little CTP hole just to decide the playoff, which was also just about 200 feet. And so we all throw, we walk up there, and me and Tyler's look pretty much identical distances away. It's dark, so it's a little bit hard to tell. So Kat paces it out, and Tyler and Carly won by 1 shoe length. So
Oof.
yeah, less than a foot, which wasn't actually the end of the world. There was actually money for second place, so we were pleasantly surprised when we got back for that. And then I'll toot my own horn. everyone had done the A-spot CTP throw off at the end, except for the 4 of us. And I just like walked up and absolutely based it. So like everyone was just waiting and waiting for us to do it. And then I just like took the money for the A-spot throw off at the end.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, successful weekend, I guess, other than the jammer. But better to ramp up to play well, I guess.
Did you play at the Brewster Ridge Open?
No, I have no good reason for it. I just didn't.
Have you before?
No, I've only played those courses casually. I think every time at a bachelor party. I think I've been there 3 times and each one was a bachelor party. So I think I played the gold layout at Fox, but I haven't played the golds at Brewster. And I think most of the times I've been there, I've played like the white layouts with like more casual players. So I think I could do okay there, but with no practice and it being like a extended weekend, it's kind of hard to justify going up there to play.
All right. I think I'm going to zip through the last week in disc golf real quick, and then we'll talk Brewster Ridge Open.
Sounds good.
Cool.
All right. Last week in disc golf, June 17th to 23rd. Monday, Colonial Lakers Dubs had 21 players. Tie for second at -9 between Benji Farrell and Dave Seaman and Robert Gerstmann. Your winners at -10, Willie Harrison and Brandon Klein. Gunks Monday Dubs had 16. Second place, Phil Fregale and Ben Vargas shot -6. Your winners, Dylan Brown and Rob Palmatier shot -7. Prospect Park Dubs had 23 players. Kevin Nguyen and Nick Cunningham shot a -10. Jay Gorsage at -11. And your winners at -15, Greg Kurtz and Adam Nelson. Saratoga Spa Random Dubs had 16 players. Jacob Dunbar and Mike Zanchelli came in third at -12. Jurapat K and Peter Gray came in second at -13. And Bobby Hallam and Mac Daddy J Totino won it at -14. Tuesday, we had J-Dubs Points Championship. What's that, week 14, Corey?
Yeah, week 14. Yep.
How'd that go?
So Tuesday was hot as shit. And of course was the first week that we were going to try playing 27 holes. I think because we were playing J27, it brought out a couple of not new faces, but fresh for this year, or at least recently. Kat Bemis came out and played. Brian Pickersmith came out and played. John Vermillion brought his partner out. Yeah, so we slogged through J27 in some high heat and humidity. I got paired up with Randy's wife, and we... Oh, yeah, right. I had another playoff at J Park. This time, me and Kat versus Bryant Smith and Chad Mandriza. We played hole 1, and I am blanking on how it went, but me and Kat took it down. And also, because we were playing J27, I wasn't sure how the timing was going to work out. We started at 5:15, but also, I think we had 14 people. So what I did was, to avoid having like 5 or 6 sums, I just used 2 Cali players. Brian Bickersmith pulled 1 Cali chip, and one half of Camel Case Corey, Tim Goyette, got the other Cali chip. So in any case, we all survived. We all played. It was good. John Vermillion also took the CTP on hole 31, and we're going to play another round of J27. Hopefully it goes as well.
Nice. Were there any CTK singles, Jamin?
There were 2 people who came out. They just played 9 holes, and I think they headed out after that because it was very hot. Yeah, that was CTK League. I did get to kill a bunch of vines. I cleared out a big spot to the right side of hole 9's tee pad to put the bench over there rather than directly behind the tee pad to give it a little bit more space and just kind of a nicer place to hang out for a couple minutes.
Nice. So also on Tuesday, Kisco Tuesday Dubs, 10 players. Robert Bennett and Mark McCabe came in second at -6, and Craig Henninger and Chris Schofield, -12. Wilcox South Hatchet Dubs, they had 12. Sean Partee and Michael Bocchino shot a -13 in second place, and John Tamburino and Jay Gorsage won it at -15. Skyland Doubles had 16 players, 4-way tie for second place at -5, and your winner looks like either a Cali or a non-UDisc participant at -6, RJ Chirkus. Wednesday, Stony Kill Random Dubs. Did you play, Alex?
I did not. I was traveling to the Brewster Ridge Open at the time, but it just showed up on my feed like 30 seconds ago, and now I can't find it, so that's a classic.
Thanks, Zuckerberg.
I believe Andrew Durrell won again.
I show a 3-way tie at -11, Joe Galinas and Joshua Lee, Josh Weinstock and Andrew Durrell, and Rory Tice and Kevin Gordon.
Yeah, Andrew Durrell and Josh Weinstock won first after a playoff, according to Gene Gierka, who's running the league, along with Tyler Cockcroft.
Nice. With 24 players showed up.
Yeah, that's a pretty good number. We've been right around that mid-20s number for most of the year, which is always nice.
Nice. Also on Wednesday, Shen Creek Dubs had 16 players. Tie for second at -7 between Michael Fair and Anthony Stamboli. They tied Jiropat K and Justin Hickok. And your winners at -13, Danny White and Noah Fry. Deadbeat doubles on Thursday had 14 players who were doing some work on the course. And then they played the yellows in the ace place. Kyle and Chris tied with Pat and Jason. Not me, Pat. Some other weirdo named Pat at -17. Ace Pot and Birdie Bank were not hit. I just assume all Pats are weirdos. It wasn't a knock on this gentleman. Paint Bureau Pro League also on Wednesdays. Anybody here play? Looks like week 8.
Oh, yeah, I was there.
Jason. So how'd it go, Randy?
So it was like pouring rain when we got there, but the forecast had it clearing up. So we actually started right on time.
Looks like 10 players. Do you know if Jason had his own bag or not?
I believe he had his own bag.
Okay, well that's...
Turns out Bureau is like super hard to spell if you're not French. We'll see what happens with enough E's and A's and U's. Now that didn't come up.
Where was this one at?
This was at J South.
Okay.
Everything was kind of wet, but definitely playable. Like wind wasn't too bad. Sorry, Wednesday was like a long time ago now.
That's part of the joke that why I do this, because it's all like ancient history, but it's fun anyway.
Oh, I remember. So we had a bunch of threesomes. So I played with Jay Gorsage and Jeremy Whitaker. I feel like we were all shooting kind of flat. I think the whole, like everybody shot kind of flat except for Harry. We can get into that at the end. But yeah, it was kind of just normal J Park stuff where I feel like we all were just like hitting trees once in a while and taking those bogeys that make your score look worse than it like felt like. So I think, yeah, I ended up at +1, which was exactly what I shot at Jammer. And the whole time I was thinking like, I'm playing so much better than Jammer. Like this is going to be, it's going to be so much more fun. And then like get near the end and you take a couple bogeys because I finished, where did I finish? I finished on hole 3. No, finished on hole 7, which used to be hole 3. And I didn't look at scores the whole time. I was at even and I was thinking I can birdie this hole. Like I birdied this hole plenty of times and it'll feel good to like shoot under par this and like be a good rating, all that stuff, like no hesitation. And then I just absolutely obliterate that first tree on the left, trying to pipe one down the middle and end up bogeying it and shooting +1. So same as Jammer. And if I had just kind of played it safe and done forehand down the middle on that hole, I might have just taken a par and taken third with Brian and gone away a little bit happier. But it's not how it played out.
That hole is deceptive. Like you said,
yeah.
It's very simple if you want to just par it. But
yeah, in tournaments, I always go forehand and I'm not really trying to park it. I'm just trying to get down the gap and take my par, hopefully. And so I never practiced the backhand like turnover with like a mitt or a putter. But I did that night. And it turns out if you hit a tree and you kick left, there's not much to do from there.
Looks like Harrison won. Harry?
Yeah. So Jason was in second with -1. And then Harry shot 8 down.
Oh.
And I think he was 9 down and actually finished on 36, which is, of course, a very hard hole. And he bogeyed it.
I believe that's home run.
Yeah. It was his only bogey of the night. So he was cruising until that hole. And like, there's no shame in bogeying that hole either. But yeah, he absolutely murdered us. But the ratings were spot on with Jammer. So cannot complain about the ratings.
10-22 for Harry.
Yeah.
Who would you hit to compare that 8 down round to see that the league ratings were the same?
The even round. I don't know. Does anyone ever shoot 8 down on that layout, Corey?
I'd never heard anybody.
Very quickly, totally unrelated, but you just reminded me of it, Pat. Justin mentioned that you did his idea better than he could possibly have ever imagined it going. So,
talking about the disc or no disc?
Yeah, he was super impressed with it.
Yeah, he did mention that.
Yeah, I was sleeping in the other room and I just kept hearing him cracking up. Like, honestly, like every 30 seconds. It was kind of hard to sleep through, to be honest.
Nice. There were some where it was like, there were 2-word answers, like Heiser Creek, the Heiser or the Creek. I don't usually do that, but I kind of had to in order to get some of them to be actually disc names. But I just felt weird about not letting you know ahead of time because I felt if I did that, it would give too much away.
Oh, yeah.
But it worked out. No, it worked out real well. So Thursday, Disc Beat Club Year 2 played SBW Whites. Mel Gallagher came in third, Derek Stasinski in second, and Mike Zanchelli won it, took 7 points. Overall standings, 5th place, Derek Stasinski. Dan Pupke in 4th. Greg Kurtz in 3rd with 58.5 points. Mark Stryker in 2nd with 61. And your leader with 86 points, Evan Kroenke. That's the last time the Mets won the World Series, 86. CPS Thursday dubs, Andrew Bailey and Brandon Klein. I almost said Kenji. Andrew Bailey and Brandon, I almost did it again. Andrew Bailey and Brandon Klein shot a -5 to come in second. Kenneth Wall and Jay Gorsage won it at -6. Friday, Skylands has a Friday handicap league at the Oasis. Don't know the handicaps, but Benjamin Joseph and Jason Murak came in tied for second at even, and Tim Florence shot -1 to win it. SPW Dubs League, they played from the Blues, 19 players. Nevin Smith and Dan Perry came in third at -8. Jay Malloy and Adam Nelson in second at -9. And your winners at -10, John Krajewski and John Duda. Cranmore Dubs had 18 players. Second place with a -8, Tim Savio and Joseph Riley. And your winners, Adam Shoemaker and David Martin at -10. Saturday, they had a Birdies for Charity women's tournament at Riverside Course in Port Jervis. Samantha Bachman came in third place at -6, and there was a tie for first at -8 between Shayna DiSapio and Stacy Blasdell. I'm sure they had a tiebreaker, but is not recorded. Sunday, Discap Sunday Tag League did some Condor prep at Prospect Park in Troy. Had 12 players, tied for third at +2, Mike Zanchelli and Jamie Borge. Second place, Peter Cornish at -5, and Ryan Lawrence took it down at -6. And also just a reminder for Shen Creek Sunday Upshot League. All right, Brewster Ridge, that was a 3-day tournament?
Yep, 3 days, 3 rounds.
And Jeffersonville, Vermont, Tournament Director Chris Young, Assistant Tournament Director Will Cleland. Corey, how'd it go? When did you go up and all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah, so David Koch had actually organized like a Airbnb for a big group of us. So myself, Kyle Hirsch drove up Wednesday morning. I had never played the courses before. I've only seen them on coverage. Wednesday was hot as shit. So we had a 1 p.m. tee time on Fox Run, which is like the open course. And it kind of sucked. Like there's no shade out there. It felt like it was 90 degrees. Well, no, it was 90 degrees, but it felt like it was 100. So we kind of slogged through that round before having another tee time later on for Brewster. Both were good to see because the course definitely looks different in person than on coverage. One of the big things that kind of blew my mind is, I've watched the Brewster Ridge Open coverage for years, and I always thought that the carry on hole 1 from the tee pad to get in bounds was like 300 plus feet, like something I'd have to like think more about or throw harder. And then I get up to it and it's like 150 feet to carry to the OB or 180, whatever it is. So anyways, it was just good to see the courses. We play Brewster, and at that point, like Kyle Denman joined and Justin Muccelli, and we get through like 6 or 7 holes, and I started to feel a little weird. I felt that I had to turn around and get back to the Tournament Central, or back to towards the pro shop where the porta potties were. And something that I haven't had happen to me in like decades, where I had to basically take a shit in the woods, and it was kind of weird because as an adult, I feel like I should be able to not have to do that, especially when there's porta potties. But anyways, didn't make it back to the porta potties. Fast forward to Thursday, and we do the same thing. We have an early tee time on Fox Run. We play that. We hang out for a little bit. We get to Brewster Ridge. Now they're calling for fucking rain like halfway through our tee time. So we literally got through as many holes as I played the first day, and then we had to leave because of thunder and lightning and rain. We didn't want to deal with that. So 2 practice rounds at Brewster, and I literally only saw like 6 holes. So then Friday was our first round at Fox Run, and that course is like just stay in bounds, and I couldn't really do that. Well, actually, I think I only took 3 OBs in that first round, but I was just struggling to get birdies. I think I got 1 birdie on the round and way too many bogeys, probably a couple doubles. And then round 2, Brewster on Saturday, I actually kind of played pretty well, but at this point I was not feeling good. I didn't have a thermometer, so I don't know if I had a fever at that point, but I was coming down with something, and I slogged through that round and somehow managed to like scrap together like a 995 rated. Actually, I don't even know what the par was. I shot like a +1 on Brewster, which ended up being like 995. And then the joke was kind of like, oh, I shitted all over Brewster Ridge this week. Which is not totally true. I made sure I was a human about it. But so after round 2, I was actually like 1 position off of cash. I think after round 2, I was like in 43rd and the top 42 places paid. And I'm like, well, it'd be kind of crazy. Not that I thought that I'd be able to like do better on Fox Run, But it'd be kind of crazy if like the first time I cash and open in an A tier is like this week, while dealing with like the Airbnb we had didn't have AC anywhere. So like the first 2 nights were kind of rough. And then the weather forecast for the weekends was garbage. We weren't even sure if we were going to play the round 3. I wasn't sure. Saturday night, I felt like dog shit. I basically ran away from everyone at the house and just went to bed at like 7:30, and I was like having cold chills. So I was like sleeping in bed, fully clothed with a hoodie and sweatpants on. So the whole time I was just thinking that, like, when am I going to call the TD and tell him that I'm not playing? But then in the back of my mind, I'm like, I've literally never DNF'd from a tournament before. I don't know if I could like stomach doing it now. So anyways, wake up on Sunday for this Fox Run round that we knew we were playing in the rain, and kind of fought through that. Played even worse that day, even relative to the field, than the first day. And I managed to come in like the lower middle-ish of the pack. I think I averaged just over my rating. But after that Brewster round, I was kind of like uplifted. So it kind of, I know we had multiple lightning delays during the round. Our Brewster round was like almost 4.5 hours. And I thought there was no way that the Fox round was going to be that long. And it ended up taking us like over 5 hours to play that round. So it was just a long struggle of a week. Definitely the weekend, but definitely the week. Like it was just a long, challenging mentally and physically between the weather and the heat and the courses. So, but either way, I had a lot of fun. I would say I'm definitely going back, but I think historically this is the same weekend that the Jammer is on. And although I like how like large the Brewster Ridge Open tournament is, I don't know if I could ever not play the Jammer for it. At the least, I'd save hundreds of dollars playing the Jammer.
So just a fluke of scheduling that it was different this year.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how that all worked out. Like, I definitely like have been asked to go play the Brewster Ridge Open with, you know, other friends in the past, but there was always something else going on. Or maybe I was just being cheap back then. I don't remember, but it was a fun tournament. They do a really good job with it, and yeah. It was a good first time for me at the Smuggler's Notch courses. It was weird being there as a snowboarder in June, like not seeing any snow, seeing the trails from a distance as you get close to the mountain that are just, you know, green. But overall, it was a great experience, I thought.
Nice. Alex, you played as well? Did you play Pro or Am?
I did. I played Am, but I realized basically when I was looking at what course I was playing that I should have played Pro, mostly because the pros played Fox Run twice, and I ended up playing Brewster Ridge twice, which, you know, I say it every time we talk about a tournament, but woods golf is not my strength, and, you know, it's the Brewster Ridge. I was playing Brewster Ridge Golds, so that's very, very not my strength. So yeah, I was playing MA1, but I definitely feel like I should have played Pro just based off of course selection.
Well, how'd it go otherwise?
You know, even with that decision, it wasn't too bad. On day one, I wasn't playing particularly well. So I left on Wednesday. So I got in probably like 9 p.m. on Wednesday. So didn't have any time to play a practice round that day. The next day I had an early tee time for Fox, so I got to play that. I really enjoyed that one. Then we had a just after lunch tee time for Brewster, and it just absolutely downpoured. So we didn't get to play that. We got to play about 7 holes. So I was walking up to Brewster round 1 feeling, you know, not very prepared, but kind of feeling like whatever happens, happens. Took a couple of bogeys early, and then walk up to hole 8, which for those of you who don't know, hole 8 is a very uphill par 5. It's super difficult, and I had never played it before. So of course, as I walk up there, I throw an okay tee shot, and then I throw a pretty dang good second shot, and then I threw a lucky third shot, and I had a 10-footer for birdie. And I was feeling really good about that because no other MA1 player got it, and I don't think any MPO players got it. There was one MP40 player who got it that whole weekend, and I was the only other player who birdied it. So I was like, that was the one good thing that I felt that I felt really good about for that first round, at least.
I was going to ask if you made the putt.
I did. Yeah. No, it was tense for a second because, you know, it wasn't a tap in. Like, I definitely still needed to putt it, but yeah. So yeah, I was really proud of that. Proceeded to get no other birdies for the rest of the round. I think the final setup was like 2 bogeys, 6 double bogeys, and a birdie on the hardest hole in the course. I think it played like a stroke and a half over par. So yeah, not feeling good after that first round. Then round 2 rolls around. So this is Fox Run, and I'm playing Fox Blues. So it's a little bit easier than what the pros are playing. But I throw my drive out of bounds. And like Corey was saying, this is not a massive carry. You know, the slope is deceptive, but I didn't even hit the ground. I just threw on hyzer and then hit the left side rough and never really did anything with it. Took a 7 on that hole, was able to recover a little bit, got a couple of birdies, then walked up to hole 7, which is the par 5 on Fox Run, and ended up taking a 10 on that hole. So yeah, it's lots of ups and downs of that one. Yeah, and it's just a wide open par 5. I just couldn't stay in bounds. I took 3 OB strokes and missed a putt to take a 10. But then, recovered from that one with a birdie on the next hole and got a couple more birdies as I went on and ended up +4 for the round. A triple, a quintuple, and a bunch of birdies to get +4. So feeling all right.
A quintuple. You don't hear that one very often.
No, it's not a common one.
I think because most people usually say quintuple.
Corey's just so happy to correct somebody else's English.
I pronounce everything wrong. You'll figure it out eventually.
Does that have an umlaut over it or whatever those accent marks are called?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, despite those 2 massive blow-up holes, that was still like a 960 rated round. So that's like 40 points over my rating, so I'm feeling really good. And then the last round, back to Brewster. Like Corey was saying, it's rainy. It's not great. Everybody's feeling like I'm watching the radar the entire time, and it's like 2 o'clock, supposed to storm significantly, and my tee time is 1:40. So I'm going to get like 2 holes in. I'm going to be really far away from the pro shop. It's going to storm, and then I'm going to have to walk all the way back. And that's pretty much exactly what happens. I had to go back there, got back out, had the second rain delay. We had to go to a condo. Because of the way Brewster is set up, it would have been such a long walk back to the pro shop. It would have taken longer to get back there and then back out to your hole. It wouldn't make sense to do that. So they had a number of like designated shelters that you'd go to. And ours was the Owl Parliament condo, something like that. So waited it out there, which is, of all the places to wait it out, at least it's inside, not too cramped, temperature controlled and all that. Finished out the rounds, not feeling great, but still ended up shooting like 925. I think I was +12 with a number of missed an upshot. Now I'm taking a bogey instead of a par type of thing. But overall, feeling good about it. I think next year I'm definitely going to sign up for whatever division plays Fox twice, and hopefully everything works out a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, that was my next question. You definitely plan on playing again?
Oh, yeah. I really enjoyed Fox, and even Brewster isn't that bad. I just, with Golds being my first introduction to it, it was a little bit taxing, but I know I can shoot better than I did.
What about your round, Jamin? I'm assuming you played pro this one?
Yep. Yeah, I tried to sign up for MA2 and they told me to get out. It was a very typical Brewster Ridge Open. I did a lot of things really well, did a lot of things not so well. Hole 16, ate my lunch on the last day after I was able to birdie it on the first day. One of the things that I realized this year is that I need to be better at snapping back into focus after a long delay, because there was really long delays throughout the tournament, but like when you're going to play a course that's that challenging, that's just kind of part of the game. And I really failed at that. On the last day, I think I shot 7 over for the round, and on the 3 holes after large weights, I shot 6 over collectively. So like if I could have refocused in a timely manner, I would have had a really great round out there in the wind and all the adverse conditions. But that's kind of what great courses are good at, is they're good at showing you what you need to work on. And that's definitely one of the big things. I did do some really, for me, cool things. It sounds kind of basic, but I landed in bounds one of the rounds on hole 18 at Fox Run. And actually, I managed to convert that one into a birdie, which was excellent.
Which was significant. So the entire week, like Justin Muccelli was theorizing about all types of things, like the weather, are we going to play? How many delays are we going to have? The cash line, can he make it? Can he not make it? Who would be playing with each other on round 2? Like, if this guy bogeys this hole, that maybe then him and Duncan Farquharson will play. And Jamin was coming down hole 18, round 3, and myself and Muccelli and a couple other people were sitting there watching, and Jamin lines up this, he says 25-footer. It kind of seemed longer than that. Maybe because it was a death putt. And Jamin just like smashes this putt. And Muccelli just instantly starts going nuts. He's flopping on the ground. He's like, no, Jamin, why are you so good? Because Jamin hitting that putt knocked not just Mucelli, but a whole lot of other people out of cash. And Jamin snagged the last cash spot. Well, tied for last cash, but so that was pretty funny.
Yeah, and I wasn't paying attention to that at the time. 2 holes prior to that, I had quadruple bogeyed hole 16. So I was like, well, I guess I'm not cashing at this one. So it was really nice to get that cash. That's not an easy thing to do at that tournament. There was a really impressive field out there.
Is that the first time you've cashed at Brewster Ridge?
I don't think so. I think I cashed last time, but like I said, they're very challenging courses, and part of that is, they really like exploit all your weaknesses and stuff and teach you things that you didn't know you needed to work on. So it's always nice to kind of overcome that, even if it's just small victories throughout the weekend, because I definitely lost some really big battles out there.
Well, I mean, if it weren't for Kyle Hirsch, your cash streak would be much, much longer, right? But it is started anew.
Yeah, and that's kind of when Justin was like, no, you just knocked me out of a cash. I was like, well, Kyle did it to me 2 weekends ago, so fair's fair. No, that's part of disc golf. That's part of competing, is you want to beat everybody at their best. That's always like, I don't like falling into a win because everybody else was having an off day. I want to beat everybody when they're like freaking on and they're going and it's super competitive. Kyle and I at the Jammer, we were talking a lot in those last couple holes. It's like, all right, looks like we're still in the cash, that kind of thing. We're going back and forth about it. And then hole 36, I bogeyed it and he parred it. And so all of a sudden I was on the outside looking in, and on hole 2, he had like a 30-foot putt. And like, I just knew to keep my mouth shut about it. It's the kind of thing that we had been talking about it a lot. If I had mentioned that, it could have changed the outcome or something, but that's not the right thing to do in that situation. And, Kyle made that putt and I fist bumped him. We gave him a good putt, and I didn't mention that it knocked me out of the cash. But that's part of disc golf, and that's one of the reasons I'm really excited to be competing and playing right now, is because there's such a large group of people who on any given weekend in Disc Gap land can put up a really great tournament. And as somebody that's been around for a long time, when that was not always the case, that there was only 2 or 3 of us, it's a really nice feeling. Even when you fail, it's still a very gratifying thing to see so many people like kicking ass out there, but they should still let me cash every time.
Looks like Caitlin Clay tied for 5th in FPO.
Yeah, she was crushing it. She was lead card, wasn't she, Jim?
Yeah.
After going into the final round?
Yeah, I think she was lead card final round and second round.
Mm-hmm.
Brinster and Cutler, 1st and 2nd in MP40.
Another battle for the ages. I can't imagine how many of those battles those 2 guys have had.
Anybody else of note that you guys know of?
Kyle Denman kind of crushed. Mm-hmm. He came in 24th. I think he threw...
So the real Kyle.
His first round was almost 1020 rated. Yeah, Kyle Sr. 1019, 979, 970 rated round. That's pretty solid. I don't know if he's played Brewster Ridge much or at all before, but he kind of popped off.
Yep, he did great. I played with him first round. He's a local guy, just kind of moved back to the area after college. He's been to like a couple of my leagues. He's played in tournaments I ran and that kind of stuff, but that was the first time I'd actually played with him. Super nice guy. A lot of fun to play with him. Hoping he stays around for a little bit.
Speaking of Kyle's, how did he do in the last round rain-wise? Kyle Hirsch, I'm talking about.
Kyle Hirsch, he had a hard time. I think that we were kind of talking a lot throughout the tournament because he was on the card behind me for that round, and he was just kind of checked out. Kyle's been playing a lot of tournaments for a lot of weekends, and I think he's ready for a little bit of a break, and that's just, that course can really bring that kind of feeling to the forefront quick.
Yeah, at least in the house, the rumor was he never plays in the rain, so I figured I'd check in on that last round at least.
Let me put it this way. My first round at Fox Run was about 3.5 hours, and that included multiple long waits on some of the challenging holes. That third round was almost 6 hours from start to finish.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I compared it to the normal length of an entire B tier.
Yeah.
It felt like we were there for a week.
Complete with lunch break in the middle.
Yeah.
Did we talk about Ryan Travis 148343?
Oh, not yet.
He played in MA2. I think he shot tied for hot round in round 1 on Brewster Blues, I think.
Close.
One off the hot run.
Was it one off?
Yep.
I was talking with him just a little bit after, and that was like with a handful of like missed 15-footers that could have put him over the top. Yeah, so he did really well there. Wasn't as strong at Fox Run, but then still put up a very respectable round 3 back at Brewster.
Top 10 finish. Now, there was a lot of I guess I'll say local in quotes or listeners or whatever that went up there and played. So it was really cool to see, especially with like some people in like Pool B playing Brewster twice and other people playing Fox Run twice. And then, just everyone kind of like hanging out to like watch their bros or whatever. Like JP Hafner was up there with his brother. So there was a lot of time to like just hang out into course and kind of follow along with what your friends were doing. Like round one, I followed Justin Michelli for the first 7 or 8 holes. And then when I started teeing off, Brandon Medina followed me for a few holes before switching over to hang out with Tucker Kozlowski. It almost kind of felt like their stay and play weekend events that they do up there. Like we were playing a tournament, but like really it was kind of like a, 5-day vacation with disc golf involved.
JP Hafner's brother, he wouldn't happen to be named Josh, would he?
Timothy, I think.
Would have been cool.
That setup for Fox Run is really cool, especially in that last round. I felt like I was constantly going back and forth. It's like, oh, this is someone I know who's finishing up on 18. Get to watch that, and then I'll step 30 feet to the left, and I'll watch somebody I know tee off, and then I'll go back and watch more people driving down the hill. So yeah, it's a really cool setup, just for spectators. What's your 3-disc question for James?
Just work in the Niagara Falls. Like his bag accidentally went over the falls.
Went over the falls. Which one?
And only 3 discs washed up. What 3 discs do you hope that he's are gonna be there to play around at? What's the fancy course in Buffalo area, James?
Bond Lake?
Riverton?
Oh, yeah. Riverton. Emory is another one. They got a lot of them. But Bond Lake is like...
What's the one that was like top 5 U-disc?
Bond Lake.
Yeah. Give him a Niagara Falls Bond Lake 3-disc challenge if it comes up.